Well, hello again. Here's the current version of the law. No changes from recently, depending on which order you watch the last two videos in. The one that has Limbal's Vault in the place of the gate is the deck list that I'm still using, with the slightly higher counter density of Condescend, Dissolve, and Memory Lapse, as well as the early Ponder and Preordain to allow me to cheat a little bit more on lands and drop only to as low as 28, um, since these two cards, as well as Condescend, can assist with finding lands, and Memory Lapse can buy me time to do it. So that's the setup we're using. And then what I wanted to show you today was just a couple of games that I had where I'm playing against, oops, what do we got here? Okay, I had 11 games today, but I tried to run through them in an earlier production of this video, and it takes too long, and a lot of the games are kind of uninteresting. Like one of these guys is conceded because I'm playing Alaro. One of them, and a couple of them, I just overwhelm them, like first turn Mana Crypt Soaring, Dark Confidant, stuff like that. And so anyway, I want to just kind of move to some of the more interesting games. I think this game against starting with Lamangos, and then we'll just kind of work our way up here. These first ones, like I said, just really bad games. Okay, so in this game, okay, I don't want to play. Yeah, I keep a two-land hand because I have Scrollac and Mana Leak against Maelstrom Wanderer, and usually their first turns are just development and not so much disruption. And usually you have a lot of time too, but it's got a Soul Ring, so that does kind of cut down on the I have a lot of time theory. So in turn two, I play Scrollac specifically because if the idea here is, do I want a Mana Leak, a 4-mana play, or a 5-mana play? In theory, the 5-mana play is going to be better. So that means if I sit here on a Mana Leak to counter his turn 4, and then I don't draw a land, I won't be able to play Hinder, and I'm gonna have to scroll rack for mana. And so his turn 5 play will get through. If I play scroll rack, excuse me, I wouldn't even have the scroll rack in play. I would have had to play it. If I play scroll rack now, then he gets to push his turn 4 play through, but on turn 5, I can scroll rack for mana if I need to, if I don't draw one, and then I can mana leak. So that's the thinking on that, why I would tap out there. Of course, if he stumbled on his mana, I could also potentially scroll rack into land and then start attacking his mana base. He just double develops, and I top deck Terminus. Almost played it. In hindsight, maybe I should have. I'm not sure, but I figured because I have scroll rack that I can manipulate the deck over and over and over and play it at the exact perfect time, which would be, after his Maelstrom Wanderers in play, which will allow me to save the Hinder for whatever he cascades into, and just let the Maelstrom Wanderer hit me in the face once, and then Terminus will team away, if he even cascades into anything relevant. So with that thinking, I just go ahead and just let the Terminus slide, and then I scroll rack for 4 so I can go get some land. I don't need a will early, obviously Terminus is for later, Karn and Tren Dynamo is for after I develop. I figure I'd keep these guys here. I want one land for leak, and if I happen to draw anything cool like Ancient Tomb, Workshop, Crypt, Vault, any of that, then I can just actually copy his Soul Ring right now. And I kept the Hinder, but this was actually an error. That's the one card that I should have thrown away. However, the thinking was if I draw a sack land and I have to fetch and I have to Mana Leak, then I need the Hinder. So that's what I decided to do. However, I don't draw any land at all, so now I actually have to take a nasty chance at Ponder. And it turns out, remember that theory of using the cheap cards to find land? It works pretty well a lot of times. So unfortunately though, I did have to shuffle away my Terminus, which is the main thing that I care about. He to kill the Lotus Creator Grid, which is a really awful situation for me to be in. So I was correct. His 5-mana play was amazing. Unfortunately, I didn't have any way to stop it right there. So this turn, having drawn the Grim, I give some thought to the correct way to deploy or to develop my board, and I decided the right answer is to, since he missed land drop like twice, but the right answer is to copy his Lotus and then kill his forest, sacking my activate or by putting mana into my Grim Monolith and fetching Ancient Tomb as opposed to getting Mishra's Workshop. The other reason for getting Ancient Tomb there was just that long term it has more value than a shop. The shop would only be good for the portal. After that, the Tomb will be good for all this. Anyway, his turn, he does have enough mana to play his Maelstrom Wanderer, so of course he does. Cascading into something I don't care about too much, other than making leak a little worse later. And Slime, and because I had to shuffle away my Terminus, I have to let the Slime resolve and counter the Commander. I would have liked to have countered the Slime with Mana Leak here, and then do the Commander. On the other hand, maybe not because of Greater Good. So regardless, I have to counter the Commander. That means he gets to Slime my Lotus. My mana development is quite stunted. So from this situation here, I just decided I can't afford to tap out. I always have the option to Mystical for Force of Will and then Scroll Racket into my hand and force with Mana Leak. So I'm just going to do nothing and see what he's got. He is down to only one card after all. It's me for 2, and what he's got apparently is nothing, which is fantastic. I can now get rid of Greater Good so that I don't have to worry about it. Possibly the right play was to hit the Grim, but I just feel like I wanted to get Greater Good off the table so that if he plays a big creature, I can just Mystical and Terminus. I don't have to freak out because otherwise a big creature is a form of card draw, and so just not gonna take the risk. However, I do decide to take this risk because he didn't stop me from killing Greater Good. I figure he doesn't have a counter. I put Coercive Portal in play and take the and allow him the freedom to top deck something that punishes me for tapping out. But he has to do it now, because if he doesn't, then Coercive Portal will, of course, win the game for me. And if it's just a big threat, again, I have Tutor for Terminus. I just can't make the Terminus, I can't make the Tutor for Force activate Scroll Rack play with only 1 mana. So we're just really hoping it's not like backbreaking, whatever his play is. He gets top, that's definitely not good. He's using it right now, that's even worse, possibly. He's got a Frost Titan, no problem. So really glad I killed the Greater Good. Don't mind the Frost Titan, that's why we have Mystical Tutor. So I go ahead and Mystical at the end of his turn. Of course, for Terminus, resolve the Coercive Portal. Sweet, he floats 2 blue and is really worried because if he had a mana drain there, I can't leak it. But any other, like a 3 counter spell, I could have stopped. Turns out he's got, I was hoping he had like Factor Fiction as his last card so that I could leak it right now and not have to face it. Turns out he just floated blue and messed with my head, I guess, because his guys were going to die anyway. So in this turn, there's some thought to holding my land for Scroll Rack that I can potentially Mana Leak and then activate Scroll Rack with the last mana off a Tomb, putting back a land and maybe drawing something better like a Vampiric Tutor or something. But because I already have Coercive Portal running, I figure I'm just going to develop a little further, and I really want to untap the Grim Monolith. Because I feel a lot more comfortable about my situation if I increase my mana base to go along with the extra cards that I'll be drawing. He has top, but he has nothing, like, obviously, to do with it. And so, I get a turn, and this is what happens. I decide that I'm going to say, he has his top in play, so I decide I'm going to say Carnage and see if I can get him to kind of take the sucker bet here. And he does. He bites. He says Carnage. Now, while I was drawing 2 cards per turn with Coercive Portal, and that's not good, obviously, for his chances of winning, his chances of winning are even worse if I get to destroy 11 mana. What is that? Yeah, 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana, and his top when he knows that his next 3 cards all suck. And for that reason, I let Coercive Portal take out 2 mana on my side, and the Scroll Rack and Portal to smoke 11 of his in the top. I think I'm the person who's much better ahead, especially since my deck can operate with this. This is operational mana here, while his deck, on the other hand, needs a whole lot more, including another color, which he just lost. So I think for him to say Carnage there was wrong. I mean, if your opponent says if it's a vote card and you're in a 1v1, you probably don't want to vote the same thing that the other guy votes. But I don't know. He decided to take the risk. If he plays Lantern, I let it resolve, thinking that although it gives him red, it's probably okay because I have Impulse and I still have Leak for anything like particularly relevant, and I don't want to burn a Leak on that only to have him play something on the next turn that his deck's all ramp. So if I start trying to counter ramp, I'm probably not going to win. So I could have. So at this point, I impulse into Vault. I could have taken Vampiric Tutor, but Vault lets me Vampiric Tutor for more life and mana, but set up the next 4 draws as well. I've got tons of life and plenty of mana for the end of his phase, so it's just superior to Vampiric for not only a card, but also the next 4 draws. So that's what I do. I get killed Lotus. Normally getting a ramp when I'm so low on cards would not make sense. Normally I would get cards, but because I was able to set up the next 4, I know that I can get ramp now because I'm guaranteed to also draw card drawing right at the top. So down a Laurel, protected with a mana leak. Plays Duplicate, and it's time to go ahead and cover him. And then of course next turn I'm going to lock him under Winter Orb. If he hadn't done anything, the next turn I could, for 4, I can go get Well of Lost Dreams. It's another way to win the game there. So he just gives up. So it's kind of an interesting game. You don't see Carnage firing off too often. So I randomly face Maelstrom Wanderer. Apparently it's Maelstrom Wanderer day. So I get to go first against this guy, Wrath Rose 2. Which is great because I have one of the best 2-card combos you can have, Mana Drain and a Mind Twist. So even when you don't have like the power ramp cards, this tends to do it, especially in a deck that runs so many big spells like this one does. But he has Sylvan Library, and that is a must counter or deal with immediately. So no tough choice there. We're out with Coercive Portal again. Now, if I were going to play Necropotence, somebody asked about this in one of my other videos, one of the slots that I would use to put Necropotence in is almost certainly Coercive Portal. It's not Dark Tutelage. The reason is that first turn land Vampiric or Imperial Seal lets you play turn 2 Dark Tutelage. And it's much harder to do that with Coercive Portal. You can tutor for Mishra's Workshop, but what if your hand is all spells? Then yeah, you play turn 2 Portal, but you've wasted your second turn land drop on a land that won't help you play the cards in your hand. If they kill the Portal, then you kind of went all in, and you're pretty hosed. So anyway, that's why Tutelage stays in, and Portal would be the card that I could take out most easily. I would still have Well of Lost Dreams in that 4-mana artifact slot to go get with Teferi if I need to fetch up a card drawer. So this would have been Necro, and in this game, clearly I would have been able to play it, and it would have been, pretty decent. But, I mean pretty decent, I mean like backbreaking, like good. But, of course, the question here, though, is would I have needed to have played Necro? I think the answer is generally no. Here I get greedy and play Well of Lost Dreams. Totally foolish. No point in doing that whatsoever. You'll see I barely use it at all. I use it this turn, and I think that's it this whole game. Because I have Portal running, and it's enough. And, so my opponent's like trying to figure out how to properly tap his mana for TP. So I can mana leak it, and then he somehow manages to... Oh, because Animar makes his Metamorph so cheap, he's able to copy my Coercive Portal, which you couldn't do with a Necro, but, whatever. So, so I go ahead and just lock him under Winter Orb, and then, we play a few turns here, and of course he's going to set me up for, at some point I'm going to have to Vault, and yet again, Ingol's Vault. Now this is the other card that would potentially be a Necropotence. You could make it Vault, because Vault, as you can see, can do a tremendous amount of damage to you in order to get you exactly what you want. and taking a tremendous amount of damage and then drawing Necropons. It's not so great. On the other hand, I'm down to, if you look at the results of the vault, I'm down to 15. And while that is like, what, 25 less than I started with, you have to think, like, in a normal game of Magic, you start at 20 and I would only be at 15 right now, and I wouldn't even care. It would have been like, so the increase in size of the deck for tutoring is offset by the increase in life. They balance each other out, and I see no reason not to play the Limb Duel's Vault. Unless, like I said, you're going to play like Necron ad nauseum, in which case, I'd probably take out Coercive Portal and Vault and run those two cards. Again, though, as you can see, like, the power of Coercive Portal and, well, having cards like these already in the deck, the deck is just strong enough to where I don't really need additional, I don't need the additional power that the other cards give me. What I need is the consistency, I think, that these artifacts give me. So if you've been watching the game, I had a situation where my opponent was probably not going to be able to play Maelstrom Wanderer, but he managed to get a Mana Vault to do it. And while I could have countered his Mana Vault here, I've got exactly 3. I let him have it because I anticipated him casting the commander, which effectively quintuple Stone Rains in, because it takes 5 of his lands plus the Mana Vault, and have a Winter Orb out. So I go ahead and just let him have his commander. He flips into Regenerator Mimic, which gives him a Trinket Mage. If he goes and gets Soaring, that's fine. I'll counter that on the next turn. He gets Zenith for 0, which lets him get an Arbor, and he gets his commander. I don't even bother countering his commander because I have a better way to deal with it. It will also deal with the rest of his creatures. And so I just trump block and then will. And then before actually casting the Terminus from the graveyard, I go ahead and play the Trinket Mage. The reason is that I need to get the Mana Crypt that I want to use to play the Terminus beforehand. Hey, Terminus puts the Trinket Mage back in my deck, and, it's not going to hurt to draw it again. I still have plenty of targets, but under the power of the Winter Orb, backed up by, drawing 5 cards per turn versus 2, my opponent gives up. Of course, had he not given up, then I would have just destroyed his Coercive Portal, and I'm sure he would have quit at that point. So, as you can see, even, like, I mean, did I need a Necro? I was constantly choking on cards, like too many cards and discarding. So, other than the 2 cards I draw off well, I never really, I don't know, it's just, for me, I just don't feel like, I don't feel like it's necessary, and I think it gives up too much consistency. So, that's just my opinion. You should try it out and formulate your own. Here I'm playing against a guy who he indicated to me that this was his like 2nd or 3rd game playing online, and I have a great hand, and this is exactly why you don't take Dark Tutelage out of the deck. I mean, look at this. Look at this first turn. It's an unbeatable first turn if these cards resolve. As it turns out, my opponent had to mulligan to 5 and mulligans into Force of Will, and was able to force my Mana Crypt, which is basically the right play. He has no way of knowing if I kept a hand that absolutely relied. Like, sometimes I keep hands where I only have 1 land in a Mana Crypt. And he could have potentially gotten not just back in the game right there, but won the game by buying himself enough time. But as it turned out, it was a mana-heavy hand, so it did not buy him the kind of time that he had hoped, and I'm able to continue to develop and set up here. And yeah, the other reason for playing tutelage is just so cheap, and you can spend off-color mana. I only have the off-color scrub to play here, but there are definitely times where you've got like blue, blue, black, and then maybe these would be like artifacts, Soul Ring, and whatever, and a Thran Dynamo or something, and then you can spend that off-color mana. It's just too doggone good to pull. So I had set myself up for a big. I was thinking I would probably just Mystical Teachings into Cyclonic Rift and then Mind Twist his hand away, but I decided to change it up a little bit because I noticed he still hasn't gotten any blue. I'm kind of beating up on the wounded here, but you know, no mercy. We'll finish the games quickly, and then if he wants to play again, you know, we'll play again. As it turns out, I strip his city of Brass and he gives up and does not want to play again, which is fine. So here I was playing against Spike 999, no, Quad 9, Spike Quad 9. I've got Centaur Lord and Korath to the left, and then I'm done with this video. And kind of annoying that the well, I guess you already know what the outcome of this game is. He's playing Free Elise, which is a commander that looks really good as a commander, but it's actually better off as a card in your deck. It's 5 mana to slowly make more mana. Yes, you can disenchant with it or draw cards with it, but the card draw, it takes a really long time. So really the main relevant effect is destroying an artifact or enchantment once, and then once again in 2 turns later. It's like a sucky version of Dak Faden, who costs 2 less mana and steals an enchantment immediately, artifact rather, immediately from -2, as opposed to destroying it. Much rather steal than destroy, especially for almost half the price. So again, this is a card that you can play in mono green, but if you're playing mono green, you need to be playing Omnath as the commander. He's extremely powerful. He can win a game in a single attack phase. And there's tons of card drawing and mana ramp and artifact kill in green. So none of these are things that you can't do without this commander. Omnath gives you the mana advantage, which allows you to do all those broken things. And if you're playing Omnath, you know, you should probably play Frey Elise in the deck. You can easily cast her and take advantage of all of her abilities while still playing the best commander. So anyway, my opponent runs out Wirewood, so I decide I'm going to Swords it because I just don't want a whole bunch of creatures in play. Because I don't want him to play a Gaia's Blessing and cast Frey Elise here, if he, Gaia's Cradle, if he happened to have drawn one. So he did not. He drew a crappy life gain elf. I say crappy because it's pointless. Your creatures need to. They're just gaining life. They're just not good creatures. That's a pretty early concept in this game that you should learn. You know, most people learn fairly quickly. The new player trap is the card. You know, life gain is good, and then you realize at some point that it's just not important. That board control is what matters. So anyway, speaking of board control, I am using my time to develop. Again, see how nice this is? I get Coercive Portal out using colorless mana, as opposed to, you know, how would I have cast Necropotence here and then cast Humility a turn later, and how would I have left Counter Magic up? It just would have been really difficult and awkward. And while I suppose you can run both Necro and Coercive Portal at some point, you've got to cut something in order to put the Necropotence in. So where does it go? You know? The other thing is when you run Necro, you also need to run Urborg most likely, which means 1 less source of blue, or you take up an extra slot, neither of which I'm particularly happy about. Regardless, with me drawing 2 cards per turn and the Humility on his table there, Spike Quad 9 gave up. So here I was playing Centaur Lord, and I believe I may have mulliganed this game. Yeah, so here's my opening hand. Golden if it had mana production, which it doesn't. Into this, which is also amazing if it had mana, which it doesn't. Into this, which is almost the exact same hand, so that's getting shit back. Into this, which I decide it has to be the keep. I've got Coercive Portal to recover, and I've got Condescend if I can just draw a land to help me dig for more land so that I can get to the Coercive Portal so that I can be in this game. And as I'm going first, I have a little bit of time, and I have some luck with top decking, and I have some really good luck with top decking. And he wastes his first 2 turns playing a tap land and a awful. This card would be better off as the land that you wanted to get. Like, this would be better off as a land and not wasting your turn 2, just playing it as a land on turn 3. But anyway, I go for Crypt, and turn 3, boom, Coercive Portal. Yet another circumstance. This card just kept coming up for me today. Yet another circumstance, however, where, as you can see, there's no way I can recover from this mulligan situation with Necro, uh, right? Using like Mana Crypt and stuff. And I've had stuff like this happen before, where I have to mulligan and I have to find a way to win the game, despite that fact. Or my opponent just starts attacking my mana base, and there's no way I'm getting triple black in that case. But here, as it turns out, all is well. The power of Coercive Portal, I decided to take a chance and tap out for tap all of my blue for Ponderer, thinking in the next 4 cards I'll find a blue. I see Vindicate, Myriad, Landscape, Crucible, so I put Crucible, and then go ahead and play my fetch land. I screwed up here. I put Myriad on top of the Vindicate. I meant to put Vindicate on top, so it would be my next card draw. Turns out to matter a little bit, because he plays Sylvan, and I have to kill it. Remember, we have to kill Sylvan instantly. I cannot allow them to start having their own green Necropotence, regardless of the cost. Drawing 3 cards per turn is not going to be good for me. So because I did not put Vindicate on top, I am unable to draw the Vindicate and then search before drawing the Myriad Landscape, searching into a new card. I don't need lands when I have land and a Crucible. But I didn't do it, so fetch with Mire. Of course, I only have 3 more lands I can get, but presumably drawing 2 per turn, that would fix itself. So holding the Myriad's not so great for me. So, and because my counterspell is Condescend, I don't even have a window here to play Myriad this turn. I want to keep as much mana up as possible for Condescend. So go ahead and kill the Vindicate. The good thing, though, is that with this land here, and I still have blue source that I can fetch, he can't like play a Wasteland or a Strip Mine, kill it, and then free himself from the tyranny of my blue mana for this turn. So he plays an Arbiter, which I could counter, but why bother? I have Humility in my hand. Go ahead and have a Grand Arbiter. It's just a 1/1. It's going to make me pay one more mana next turn, but anticipating that play, I go ahead and just fetch Godless Shrine. And then Watery Grave, and down comes Humility with 2 mana up so that I can counter for 1 on his next turn if I need to. Condescend for 1, that is. Or if he had actually, if he had a counterspell here, Force of Will or Pact of Negation or whatever, then I could end his turn, spend 2 mana in Mystical Tutor. But instead, what he has is a concession. So my last game of the night, hopefully interesting. Again, having skipped the first 5 games because they were extremely not interesting. I get this pretty nice hand, and I'm playing against Duretti, and Duretti is a deck that it's probably the best mono red commander. In fact, it is the best mono red commander. And it has, even the precon has a lot of nasty things like Vandal Blast, the Living Death for artifacts, Goblin Welder, and a whole bunch of other things that work with the graveyard. It has like a Wheel of Fortune type card, I think. So there's just a lot of things that threaten a blue deck in the red deck, which makes sense. So on this turn he plays Temple Bell, and I would normally counter that. It would be correct to do so. But because I have Shop in play, I decided to let it go because I figured he's just going to feed me things that I can... It is just going to make me develop that much quicker. So he gets me a top. His Burnished Heart, which I do not want. I don't want him to... He can have cards, but he can't have cards and ramp. You can have ramp or you can have cards, but I don't let you have ramp and cards unless something's going drastically wrong for me. So he just starts drawing me counters, which is great too. But yeah, sure you can have... This is temporary ramp. I don't care about that. This is card selection. I don't care about that. It's not card draw. So end of his turn, I go ahead and Mystical Teachings. Since I'm fine, I've got I go ahead and get disenchant. I've used the temporal bell enough, and now I'm getting ready to shift into future sight mode. So temporal bell is only really beneficial to him at this point in the game. So he scries, and then I immediately kill this before he can untap and get another hit off of that thing. And then plays Stranglehold. So I don't care about the fact that I can't play an extra turn, but not being able to search is, would certainly strangle my development. So yeah, I've got to counter that. Luckily, the way that his mana works out, I can actually condescend. So although I don't have enough mana to top this turn, I'm able to. I decided I'm going to put both cards on the bottom because I don't need Myriad at this point. I've got another land to play, and I don't need Worn Power Stone when I have a Grand Dynamo in my hand. I've got enough mana development. I need some action cards. So he's continuing to Crystal Ball. Crystal Ball is like, I don't know, having a Sensei's Divining, like Sensei's Divining Top and a fetch land will dig you much deeper, and also isn't card disadvantage like this is. If he plays Wormcoil Engine, it's just damage. I don't care that much, so I just let it go. I have like, how many turns do I have from 46 life, gaining 2 per turn? I don't even know. So I go ahead and just flashback Mystical Teachings. After taking, I look with top, don't see what I want. Fetch, look, fetch, flashback Mystical Teachings, go get Enlightened Tutor, cast the Enlightened Tutor, and then with the 1 mana left, I Enlightened Tutor for the card I want. I go ahead and activate top so that I can set up my next couple of turns, like a sort of mini Lindell's Vault almost. Putting Humility on top of Back to Fiction on top of the Jace. Jace being not that great with a couple of creatures on his side of the board. Then I cast the Humility with 1 mana floating because I did it through the Dynamo, so I go ahead and take a peek and find a land, and in order to consistently hit my land drops, I go ahead and activate top. And also because that means that when I draw it, I can cast it with Workshop, which means it's effectively free, otherwise the Workshop's doing nothing for me anyway. So. He plays Koth, and I don't want him to have that. Just easy choice there. So I actually hard cast the Force, and then it's future sight time. I decided not to make the, well, as I said, I have Workshop working for me, but now it's working like overtime for me. Top cards Jace, don't care. And to start doing fun stuff with top sight here. I've got the combo going, so I run out this way, and then I've got exactly 3 mana so that I can hinder, and I figure that this game's 100% over. Actually, he's used Crystal Ball to set up Reforge a Soul, which is a Wheel of Fortune, which I actually have to let resolve, because if I counterspell the dang thing, then he plays Duretti, and I really don't want him having Duretti in play. More importantly, if you look at his mana, if I counterspell that thing, he'd have 5, and then he can play the red Vandal Blast, or the even worse, the Living Death for artifacts, getting his Temple Bell back and killing my stuff. So I had to think about this kind of hard. Like, how do I deal with this? Because I also, on the other hand, I don't want to lose Yawgmoth's Will. What I finally decided to do is I am going to have to tap mana, but I'm not going to tap the full amount. So first I fetch land, as opposed to casting like the Brainstorm on top of my deck. And then I Scroll Rack. I was hoping to just hit a cheap counter here, but I burn my Force of Will, so that's not an option for me. So I Scroll Rack to protect Hinder and Yawgmoth. And then draw 7 cards. I lose all this good stuff. But I only lose it to Yawgmoth's Will. And I don't find in any of that a 2-mana counter. I mean, I knew the first 2 cards weren't, but none of the others are a 2-mana counter. So if he does get, if he does play his commander here, I can't stop him. If he plays anything else, I can let it resolve and then respond with, I can cast Lindell's Vault and use Lindell's Vault to fix the situation, no matter how bad it is. There is pretty much nothing that Even if you played Blood Moon, I would just vault into Gilded Lotus and carry on with my life. He plays his commander and sacks his little guy who returns an artifact to his hand. Doesn't work because of humility, but he's able to use his commander to Spine of Ish Saw. And you can see how nasty, because of the Wheel of Fortune effect, how nasty it would have been if he would have had the Living Death for artifacts. He would have got Tower of Fortunes and Nev Disc. Of course, again, I would have just fixed the situation with Limdol's Vault, but whatever. So he gets Spine of Ish Saw out, and correctly chooses Future Sight. Like 9 out of 10 people, random players would just choose Humility, which makes a degree of sense. But Future Sight is clearly unbeatable. Like you cannot win if it's in play. With Humility in play, you can. It just takes longer. So he made the right call. But it really doesn't matter. I Limdol's Vault at the end of his turn. Oh no, excuse my Impulse at the end of his turn from hand, as opposed to vaulting from play from the top of my deck, and vault into Mind Twist, and then top deck copy artifact. So I twist for 6. So his whole hand that he got from Wheel of Fortune is gone, including Trash for Treasure, which is really nice. And then his copy artifact Spine. His commander goes away, and I'm able to ponder into Mana Drain, which means not only do I have 2 counters that cost 3, but even if he has a Strip Mine, even if he has a Strip Mine and a thing, like let's say he Ghost Quarters my land, and then actually, you know what? There's almost no way for him to. You wouldn't have been able to get through this either way, but. Bottom line, I'm always more comfortable when I have a counterspell that costs less, costs the amount of mana I have available -1, just in case they have some way to kill a land and make a play. His only play, however, is tapping a bunch of mana to cast the Ready, not enough to do anything about the Hinder, unless he had like a fork or something to copy the Hinder's effect, and when I resolve the Hinder, he gives up. If he had countered the Hinder, of course, I would have, with a copy or a fork or another such effect, Reverberate, I would have just Yawgmoth's Willed, and then used my graveyard to address the issue of the Ready. I did not need to. So thank you for watching. Those were all the games for today that were interesting. Like I said, the others were pretty much just somebody just dying within the first turn or a couple of turns, and not super interesting. Let's see if this will let me. Again, this is the deck list, and I always appreciate you guys watching, your comments and stuff, and I always try to get back with you. So leave any comments you might like, and I'll see you next time.